Hey folks, in this episode, I get to sit down with Evan Tanaka. He's the founder of a company called Naka Studios. We're going to talk about surviving and thriving during a global pandemic. This is TWiP. Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I'm your host, Frederick Van Johnson. Today on the show, Evan Tanaka is here to tell us about how he was able to pivot what he was doing into what he's doing now in terms of photography and building photography businesses and an amazing team and all that good stuff in a city that has been ravaged by the pandemic, is recovering now, but has been ravaged by the pandemic. He was able to build a company into a thriving enterprise during all of this adversity. Evan, welcome to the show, man. How you doing?
Hey, how are you? Thank you so much for having me. This is very excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. You and I had a conversation. We bonded over our pre-interview conversation, over our mutual nerdiness around science fiction. So,
gotta love it, man.
Yeah, it's the way of the future. I'm just saying. So let's dive in.
A lot of good stuff out there.
Yeah, no, we can't get enough. Just for the folks that are watching this, as we record this, it is February 22nd, 2021. Evan has not seen the latest version of WandaVision yet, and I'm trying my best not to reveal what happened.
You gotta hold back.
It's hard.
Don't do it.
I'm holding back. It was a good episode. You're gonna watch it after this. I know it was a good episode.
I'm actually blocking off the rest of my day, my calendar, and I'm going to go watch it right after this. And then I'm going to jump back on the phone with you and then talk to you about it.
There you go. Bring it. Let's dissect and let's analyze this latest episode. So let's before we talk about Naka Studios and how that came about, how did you come about? Because before you started that, you obviously were a photographer. What was your sort of origin story, your Avengers origin story into becoming the photographer?
Yeah. It was a dark, rainy night, and I was on a sunken ship. No, my story is very similar to, I think, a lot of people that are videographers, filmmakers, photographers, in that photography was just a hobby of mine, and I really enjoyed it. I didn't go to school for it. I just, I picked up a camera, and I've always been into art, and it was just something that all of a sudden, I started actually getting paid for something I would do essentially for free. And it's like, wow, this is really, really exciting. Something I like doing, didn't feel like work. And it slowly progressed to actually becoming a full-time career. But yeah, like I said, I went to undergrad for kinesiology. I was supposed to be a doctor and become a physical therapist. And, it just didn't feel as good as picking up a camera. And then I went to grad school, same thing. I was like, I want to be in marketing, I want to be in business. And I still was holding on to a camera. And so finally, after I graduated, I was just like, okay, I think I keep coming back to the camera. Therefore, I think this needs to be my career going forward.
Yeah. And that's interesting because a lot of people don't get to that point, right? They'll go through their entire life doing something that they're not supposed to be doing and never have the courage to jump and take that leap of faith into doing what their body and the world is telling them to start doing. Was it scary when you made that jump?
Oh, it's still scary. I mean, it's just like, it was really scary, especially because I think anybody can attest to spending so much time studying, going to school, 4-year university, and then going to grad school for something completely unrelated to what I'm doing as my full-time career. Now I obviously like to cherry pick my experiences from undergrad. I'm like, oh, this kind of had to do with what I'm doing now. And then same with grad school, like this kind of had to do with my business sense, and I'm applying here. Okay, there was a reason for all of that. But yeah, absolutely. It is very scary making the full leap into just content creation, holding a camera, photography, trying to build up a studio, especially during a time like this.
Right. And what did that leap look like, though? Was it a toe in the water leap? Like, okay, I've decided I'm going to be a photographer. Now I'm going to shoot weddings or portraits or sports or kids or or models. What was the vector that you took?
It was I would say it was a little bit more of a conservative approach, just that, I was always told to have security and job and, health insurance, all those fun grown up things that we have to worry about.
Sure.
And I was a moonlighter. So I would go to my full-time job, 9 to 5. My first job out of grad school, I worked at an investment firm, believe it or not. And every day I would get off of work, and then I would either go home and edit or go and shoot. Every weekend, or almost every weekend, I was doing some type of photo shoot or video shoot. And it started really slowly at first. It was like one person would hire me and be like, hey, I have this brand that I'm working with, and would you be interested to shoot some clothes for trade? And I'm like, okay, sure. So I started off that way really slowly. And then sooner or later, it started actually being paid work. And it was like, wow, this is, one, really fun. Two, I get to actually make a little bit of extra money on the side. And it turned into a career where I was able to finally leave my full-time job at the investment firm, and I got hired as a content producer for a men's fashion brand. And then from that point, we can get into it now, but fast forward a year later, pandemic hits and everybody's laid off, and I really didn't get left with any other choice.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? So just this is one of those stories where, if there is a silver lining, there's a silver lining inside of the insanity and negativity that was the pandemic. So I want to talk about that. So Naka Studios now, right? So the website looks fantastic, by the way. I feel depressed when I look at that website because I'm like, man, this man's living the life down there. He's got, all these cool people, these cool, beautiful people working around him, taking photos of amazing brands and doing all. How do I do that? Like, tell us, me and ostensibly the audience, how do we become an Evan and do that?
You don't want to be an Evan. It really comes down to, and this is not shedding a light on anything. It's not any new advice, but it comes down to the relationships that you build and making sure you deliver on promises, and just, again, building those relationships and harnessing them, and not underperforming. You always want to do your best. And that's something that I've always held true to myself, where, I get really attached to my projects. I was in art ever since I was a little kid, painting, charcoal, whatever it might be. And I would throw a lot of my own emotions into those. And the same thing goes with my video work, my photo work. My emotion, a piece of me is in each project. So I want to make sure every project is the best I possibly can make it, because it is, it's our digital resume, and we're putting out there. When people see the work, if they say, oh, this is whatever, or it's okay, man, that hurts. Yeah. So I want to make sure that if I'm putting something out, it's going to be the best it possibly can be.
Yeah. And so building the studio, though, it's one thing to be a good photographer and be the artisan and the craftsman of creating exceptional work. It's another thing to put a studio together with a bunch of people and the business that goes around that, and brick and mortar and all that. Yeah. You did all that in a short period of time. Take us through how you did that.
Well, so this is something that I don't know if you're similar like I am, where I do have a difficult time delegating. The way that I learned photography, videography, was you have to bootstrap it and you do it yourself. And that's my approach to how I've done all my photo shoots, my video shoots up to this point. So building the studio and bringing on more people, bringing on a producer, bringing on account managers, bringing on more photographers and videographers and editors even. It is a learning experience in itself, just to be able to kind of let go of the reins a little bit, trust the people that you have working on your team. It's a big learning lesson. It doesn't come easy, if the way that like how I learned, and if anybody out there is listening, the same thing, where you do the photo shoots, you do the editing, you would do the pre-production work, the post-production work. And now it's like taking a little bit of that backseat and saying, okay, I'm hiring you for this position, and you're going to be able to do this, and I need to trust you. So being able to trust those people, it's a learning experience.
It's good. Yeah. which is why I'm so interested in this, because you hit it right on the head. You and I are like related somehow, because I have the same kind of brain of letting go of the detail. I think a lot of it was because I worked at Apple, and there's that high level of attention to detail there and zero margin for error and all that stuff. And that has followed me throughout the rest of my career, and military, obviously, right? So just having that high level of attention to detail, but it's a curse as well, because the calculus that you do in your brain is, I could just knock that out real quick. Why do I need to hire somebody to do that? Right. And they can never do it as good as I can. Well, I'm just going to do it. Right. So how do you get out of that? How did you force yourself?
Well, if you have any tips on how to get out of that, I'm still trying to figure it out, because I'm going through it right now. But it's so true. It's like, sometimes going back to what you're saying, like, oh, I can just do it. Sometimes in my mind, it's like, oh, if it'll take me longer to explain how to do this versus if I just do it myself. The thing that I'm learning now, and this goes to anybody that's building a business, not only in photography or, want to start a creative agency, it's, yes, that one time it might take a little bit longer to explain something or tell somebody what you're thinking or what you want. But then the next time it's going to get a little faster. And then the next time it's going to be even faster. And then all of a sudden you're going to be in a better rhythm where they're able to almost anticipate what you're going to want. And you can't get to that point until you start trusting people. And you're never going to be able to grow beyond just the guy behind the camera or the person behind the computer doing the editing. If you want to grow, if you want to build a business, you got to let people in, and you got to take the time to be able to say, these are the things I'm looking for, but I'm also hiring you for a reason. So I trust your judgment.
But then you did all that under the shadow of the global pandemic, right? COVID-19, right? So you're like, hey,
COVID-20, COVID 2021.
Right. Yeah. Whatever number we're going to throw in it, depending on when you're listening to this. But what were some of the challenges that were presented to you trying to build and launch a business, a high-end boutique level business during this kind of pressure? Right. I mean, I would imagine it's not as easy as it is during boom times, right? You're doing it with lots of constraints. How'd you do it?
Yeah, it's when you say it like that, it's like, oh man, that sounds really great. But we're still trying to do it, and we're still building, and it is difficult because we were faced with a lot of different obstacles than I think that we've had to deal with before. Luckily, like I said before, I've been a bootstrapper in terms of my production crew. The kind of shoots I like to do. I don't like to have a bunch of people on set. I don't normally like to have these big blown out productions where it's like you have 20, 30 people on set to get, 2 or 3 shots. To me, that one is just a waste of time. It also can waste a lot of money. So the way that I've always approached things is with a minimal crew. And luckily I shouldn't say luckily, but since I've had that experience in coming to this pandemic where you're not allowed to have a large crew, you're not allowed to have a ton of people in one location, it actually played in my favor, because a lot of people in my position were more used to having the bigger crew and having a bunch of people for a designated role, where I was doing the same thing with 4 people that were doing multiple roles and being able to get a premium content out of whatever the day's shoot was. So I think that was a major plus for me going into this, having that experience. But then, there's the obstacles of having a COVID officer there. You're not allowed to have 6 or more people in a studio at one time. And that's still true in LA right now, depending on the size of the studio. So it's all those things that we have to kind of, adapt with, figure out. And luckily, I've even done shoots in my garage. If you go on my social media on, Evan_Naka, it's a lot of the shoots that I'm doing with product, I'll just do it in my garage because I don't need a huge setup. I don't need this big, sick wall that's going to make everything look crisp and clean for when you're standing there. It's like, all I care about is, this little image right here. And I want that to look great. If I can everything else can look like a mess. I mean, I wish you could see like my office right now. My office is a very good depiction of how my sets usually look. It's just a mess, but right here, it's very clean. You know, that's all that matters.
That's all that matters. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like, that's kind of like my approach to everything. And I think why, you know, building this during this time I'm not going to say easy, because it is by far not easy, but I did have a good experience level going into this, setting up these types of shoots.
So you mentioned COVID officer. What's a COVID officer?
A COVID officer is going to be someone on set that's making sure that people are getting their temperature taken. People are having hand sanitizing stations. They're standing 6 feet apart, making sure everybody's wearing their face masks. They're pretty much a necessity on any shoot that's going to have, 4 more people there. I would say especially if you're hiring outside talent and you're not just shooting a product or something with you and an assistant or a couple assistants, the COVID officer is almost mandatory.
Wow. So with a COVID officer and that sort of dynamic, have you ever had any Tom Cruise moments?
I was just going to say that.
Because clearly he didn't have a COVID officer.
yeah. Apparently Tom Cruise was his own COVID officer that day.
Yes. That is crazy. So I'm curious.
That thing is crazy.
I've heard it. Yeah. It's like, well, if you're paying that much money out of your own pocket and people aren't listening, I get it 100%. 100%. He was nice. I think he was nice about it. And considering the ramifications of what could happen if,
the whole thing could have got shut down.
Yeah, and people could have died, So what does looking at it when you step back from building the business, right? And getting in, clearly, like you said, you're still on that path and building it because we're still kind of in the pandemic and all that. What do you think have been some things that will stick? Like post-pandemic, are you still going to have a COVID officer of some sort there? Or what learnings have you culled from having these constraints placed on you?
Yeah, well, I'm sure a COVID officer is going to be something that we're going to have on set for, the foreseeable future. I don't know when that time is going to be where we actually don't have to wear face masks. Even with the vaccine going out right now, I'm still anticipating a good year, maybe more, of having to wear face masks, having to have a COVID officer there. But I think the biggest learning lesson, and I think that this is really good for anybody that's getting into this space, is working with a lean, agile team is the way to go right now. I think something that I always preach is that the days where everybody had a single role. You had your gaffer, you had your PA, you have your director, you have your DP, you have your assistant. Like everybody had their single role for these big productions. And that doesn't mean that those types of big productions are ever going to go away. I know there's always a time and place, but if you can operate at a lean level with a minimal crew, putting out, really premium content, you're going to save a lot of money, a lot of time, and be able to work much faster to pick up more clients. And that's probably the biggest learning lesson from here. Like I said, going into the pandemic, I already was kind of taught to work like that, but this really solidified it. And I think that's why Naka Studios has been able to thrive during this time, is because we have used a really lean team for any time that we're doing a shoot. If I can do a shoot myself, I'm going to do this myself. I'm not bringing in a bunch of different roles when it's not necessary to get the shot done. So going forward, just like keeping it lean,
But how do you see that? See, there's the kind of split there. Like, you want to delegate, but then you want to stay lean and do a bunch of stuff yourself, but then you don't want to be doing everything yourself because you know that you need, in order to grow, you got to hire a team. So it's like a snake eating its tail. How do you manage? How do you split that into, I'm going to do these things because I know I like doing these things and I'm better at doing these things, versus I'm going to push those things off. Like I hate accounting and I hate marketing or whatever. I'm going to push those off to other people. How do you, Evan, how do you make that determination?
You said that exactly right there. I don't like doing it. I'm going to give it to somebody else. I just want to do the creative stuff. That's all I want to focus on. It is a learning. I got to learn the accounting part. I got to learn the business aspect of it. I do need to be able to be well versed in all of that kind of stuff. And any good leader, manager, CEO, founder of a company should have a good, strong, basic understanding of what your business is doing. But I mean, this is a very typical saying. I'm sure someone originated saying this, but it's like always surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. And that's what I'm always trying to do, is where, like my producer buddy, who I've been friends with since I was in college. We were roommates all 4 years of college, and he's just better at budgeting. He's better at putting together the pieces than I am. I can do it, but after we've just been working together for so long, I'm just like, I know he's got it. I don't have to second guess, where the budget is going. If people are going to be there on time, he's going to be the person making sure that all of those things are taken care of. That way I can focus on just the creative. So I think most importantly, have people around you that are, one, smarter than you, and then that you can really trust.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you for putting that on there, because that was the other side of that. Having people around you that are smarter than you, but then are duplicitous or disingenuous, can tank your business, right? You got to have the 1-2 punch of, I trust this person and they're smarter than me, therefore I can give them this tangent of the business to take care of. Yep. So,
and they're not going to run away with it.
Right. They're not going to run away with it. And you're not going to look like, where'd all my money go? I'm curious about it, because you, like I said at the beginning, you were kind of living the life, or at least appear so from the outside, like LA-based, LA-based photographer, studio, good-looking guy, dressed in black, got good-looking people around you. Yeah, well, you got to wear black. But I'm like, when I see that, I think of like, this is holy grail for a lot of photographers. They want to be doing that. They probably picture Evan. Whenever you walk around, it's in slow motion with beautiful women behind you or next to you with EDM music playing in the background, right?
This is exactly my life. I'm happy you know this, and I appreciate the fact that you understand my day to day. I just wake up and just like doves fly out of bed with me.
Exactly. But what is a day in the life? What's the truth? What is a day in the life of, like, on a? I know everything varies, but on an average day, what does it look like?
I mean, average day. You know what? I complain sometimes about how busy I am, but during this time, I am super grateful that we are constantly working. Yeah. But my day is very typical to what a normal day would be for someone that's extremely busy, that's getting ready for a photo shoot or wrapping up a photo shoot. So it's either I'm on set, or I'm putting together a shoot, or I'm wrapping up a shoot. So it's either I'm holding the camera, or I'm sitting behind a computer and I'm editing. It is not luxurious. I don't have any wonderful, beautiful women besides my fiance that is just standing or like walking around with me. Music isn't playing. It is a grind. It's a hustle. It is making sure that that everything is going accordance to what our schedule is, like our production's coming up. I mean, the more you get into this business, the less it actually is like the social media photographer. Because I mean, photographers all of a sudden in the past like 5-6 years have turned into like this cool thing that people want to be a part of. Like, oh, I get to get a camera and I walk around outside, especially in Los Angeles. Everybody and their mom has a camera and they're out taking photos. And it's like, oh, there's just like this cool mystique about them. That's not how it was like 10 years ago, where it was just, just like the nerdy guy that would have his strap, like his shoulder strap with his cameras, 2 cameras, and he would just be like taking photos out there. So the more you get into this and you make this a full-time career, the more work it's actually going to be. Just warning out there. It's fun.
Yeah. Just like everything else has the outside perception. Like podcasting used to be, what the heck is that? What? And then only nerdy people are doing it. And then Joe Rogan and Serial and all that stuff. And now podcasting is a thing, right? It's so interesting to hear kind of the day in the life from the inside of how things go versus the perception, which is You're hanging out in bed until 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and then you run into the studio. Someone hands you a camera, you snap a couple of shots, and then get in your limo and go to the club, right?
That's you just always nail on the head every single time. I'm just like, do you have cameras at my house? Like, you just see me walking around like that?
I know what's going on. I know it's all in slow motion too.
All in slow motion at 120 frames per second. That's it. 60 frames doesn't do it. It's 120 or nothing. No, I mean, I'm up at like 5 o'clock in the morning editing, have my cup of coffee. I'll do like 2 or 3 hours of editing before anybody else gets up. I'll write out my to-do list. I'll try and make time to like go get some exercise in, but then come 10 o'clock, I'm down at the computer or on set until 8 p.m., 9 p.m., sometimes, midnight, depending on if I have an edit to get in. So it's the limos hopefully come later, the slow motion walking around town. That's what I'm working towards one day, but right now it's a grind. It's a hustle.
I love it. Well, that's a perfect segue into what's next. Like, where do you want this to go? Like, when you bring people on staff or you're talking to your crew, where do you say, okay, this is where we're going in 5 years from now or whatever? Naka Studios will look like this. What does that look like?
So, right now it's kind of the exciting time because we're getting ready for this part, right? We're going to be more established. We're looking, currently right now we're looking for a bigger studio space, and I can get carried away sometimes. I'm just like, oh, I found this like 7,000 square foot warehouse. Oh, that's going to be my place. I love that. And then I look at the price tag and it's like, oh, it's $20,000 a month. Okay, never mind. So I gotta pull back a little bit. But that's the next step is one, getting that into a bigger studio space that allows for myself, my team to shoot. Cause we specialize a lot in product photography. Now we do a lot of lifestyle video work, but I think what really we made our mark on is creative product shots. So that's where I'd want my studio to be, just armed with an arsenal of fun props. We're able to just, throw water and any type of liquids and, make a mess in our creative space, have an office, editing bays. That's really the next step for us. And then hiring on our full-time staff, build that up. And then, in 5-10 years, Naka Studios be a household name in Los Angeles and maybe beyond, working with, even bigger clients or more clients and being able to put on bigger productions. So, it's, who knows what's going to happen in the future, but right now it's just like, let's do the best work we possibly can for the clients that we have. And so this is, I'm about to go on a little bit of a tangent.
Sure.
For the types of clients that we're working with is we found that I really love working with startups. I think especially during this pandemic time, but even before that, the entrepreneurial spirit is not dead. I've actually seen a lot of different small businesses pop up during the pandemic, whether they got laid off or maybe they're using their unemployment check on a new startup venture that they're doing. But whatever the case may be, I've been seeing these just new brands come to life. And I love the idea of growing with all of these, LA-based companies or any company that is just growing in a time when it's actually kind of difficult to do so. So if we can all come out of this in the next year, 2 years ahead, those are the kind of brands that we really want to just grow with into the future.
Yeah, it's almost like building a company while wearing ankle weights, right? It's like I've walked through the desert and I've learned to survive on, stink bugs and cactus, and now I'm in a city now, but I still have my desert survival skills. That's what's coming out of it will look like. Yeah, that's really interesting. So if you could throw one tip out there for the photographers that are like, they may be sitting in a cubicle or at home on Zoom all day or whatever, right? And they're like, one day that's what I want to do. I want to do product photography. I want to have a small team that I know and trust, and we just want to crush it on smaller projects projects with startups and that kind of thing, and maybe grow into larger brands. But I'm having failure to launch. I don't know what to do next. I feel like I'm a good photographer, but I don't know what that next step should be. How would you guide them? They asked you this question at a Starbucks, and what would you say to them?
You know, I would say that one, you are falling victim to your that every creative person that I've ever met does, and I do it myself, is you're getting too far into your head. When you start thinking to yourself like, oh, how am I going to do this? Or how am I going to put together a team? Or how am I going to pull off this photo shoot or video shoot? You're going to be so far deep into your head that it's going to make you numb, and you're just not going to end up doing anything. And I've done that before where, I have a concept or an idea that I really want to shoot, and I'm like, oh, well, maybe they're not going to like it, or it won't turn out the way I envision it, or maybe it's too expensive to shoot, or I don't have the right skill set. And then I end up doing nothing. And I think there's nothing worse than just letting an idea or a creative vision just fade away. So my biggest tip and advice to anybody that wants to start a business or become a photographer full time is get out of your head and just start shooting. Just start taking photos. This is exactly how I started my product photography journey, and I haven't been doing this that long. It was, I needed something to shoot. I needed a creative outlet, and all I would do was I would walk down the grocery aisle at Ralph's and just be like, oh, here's a 99-cent Kit Kat. Let me take a picture of that. Here's a Hostess treat product. Let me take a picture of that. Plus side is you get to eat the product after the photo shoot, which is awesome. But
it's also dinner.
It's just like, oh, what else do I want to eat? I'm going to have a microwavable dinner. Cool. I'm just going to shoot that anyways. But it's so true. It's like I would order a pair of Nikes and I would just shoot them before I wore them. I remember my fiance ordered a pair of shoes, and I wouldn't let her wear them because I was like, I'm going to take photos of these before you use them. So I made her not wear them for like 2 weeks. That's a little ridiculous, but that's the way I approached just getting out of my own creative rut, getting out of my head, and just start taking photos. And you'll be amazed, like actually how creative you are, what you can do with a minimal setup. And you'll be surprised with the kind of feedback you do get once you're actually able to perform at that level brands are looking for.
Yeah. It's like, what you said about getting out of your own way resonates, right? Because it's like, you remember in high school, it's like in high school and you're at prom or whatever, and you want to go talk to that girl over there, but then you talk yourself out of it because of fear of failure, so you don't do it, and then you leave prom or whatever party it was, and you're like, man, I should have talked to that girl. I should have just gone over there and talked to her.
I should have done it. And then you got your 10-year reunion, you're still thinking about it, you come back and she's married and has kids, you missed your opportunity. Like,
that could have been me.
That could have been you, man. That could have been you with the kids. If you don't act on it, then you'll never know what's going to happen, and you're always going to be second guessing. And the worst thing that can happen is you take a bad photo, but guess what? We live in the digital era. Go take another photo. Like this isn't film. This isn't anything that's like how it used to be. We have great software, great equipment. Go out, shoot, make mistakes, learn from them, make every shoot that you're doing learn something new every single time, and you'll get there. Just keep doing it.
Yeah, keep doing it. Repetition, consistency. What is it, 10,000 hours, to get good at something? I don't know if that's true or not, but repetition helps you get. Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes all you need is that one. Go for it.
Yeah. Just get started. Yeah, it's interesting. Well, first of all, I want to have you back on because we didn't talk about gear process. You got to come back. We got to talk about this. We'll let this interview will serve as your introduction to the TWiP audience. But if people want to catch up with you and follow you online on social, or if someone's listening and they want to contract you, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
Yeah, absolutely. Find me on social media for Instagram, TikTok, Evan_Naka. I have a YouTube channel that I'm doing a little bit more of in-depth, like behind the scenes of how I'm taking these photos, setups, breakdowns, equipment. And you can find that at Evan Tanaka. Website is nakastudios.com. If you're interested in contacting us for a photo shoot or anything like that, that would probably be the best place to find us.
Love it. Love it. Cool, man. Thank you so much for coming on. It's an honor to talk to you. I'm going to go back and look at your website again. Like I said, I was looking at it in prep for this interview. I'm like, man, I hate this guy.
No, it's actually finally, like, we're finally starting to put stuff on there. We've had so much stuff that's been backlogged, and it's like finally we're putting some of the new work on there. So it's actually exciting. So thank you for that, because a lot of hard work is going into that website.
Well done, sir. Well done. Yeah, I encourage people to definitely go check it out. It's at nakastudios.com, right? NAKA studios.com. Yeah, definitely go check it out. And you have some work to do this afternoon, by the way. WandaVision. You got to.
Yeah, I was just like, what work is he talking about? Oh, yeah, WandaVision. The most important priority.
That's got to happen. It's only like a half an hour. So you need to go get caught up and then text me. Text me, let me know what you think of the episode. Because like I said, my tease for that episode is some changes happened that you need to understand that will change your perception. I'm not going to say anything else. So text me and let me know what you think. All right, cool, man. All right, well, you have a good one. Thank you for coming on. And yeah, definitely we'll schedule another one where we can dive a little bit deeper into gear and software and the business side of stuff. This was a really good introduction. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and I look forward to the next time I'm on here.
All right, take care. This is TWiP.